Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, today is National Back to Church Sunday. So I'm very pleased to see all of you back at church. I'm wondering, though, how well they publicized it, because I didn't even know that this was Back to Church Sunday until this morning when I was listening to the radio and heard something about it. And then I knew I had to talk about it. But I didn't know what to do, because that would ordinarily be something I'd talk about in my introductory remarks. And I would never let this one go, because it's just too plump and juicy thing to talk about. But I'm not doing any introductory remarks this morning, and so I thought I'd inflict it on you. So today is Back to Church Sunday. I won't talk about it except to say that I looked at the website, and they're calling it National Back to Church Sunday, but it's a day that's devoted to getting people in the community who don't go to church to come to church and see what's available, see what's there, with the idea that they'll come back the following Sunday. But I was thinking, well, these are people who've never been to church. What are they coming back to? They're not really coming back to anything. But we are having that today, and we'll have it. Now, I'm speaking this morning on the topic, how to be creative. But the title of my talk is really a trick title. It's a trick title because you don't have to learn how to be creative, because you already are. You're creative simply by thinking. And you can't help it, and you can't even stop it, because all thought is creative. See, we're spirit forever coming into expression. And because of this fact, our thought has the quality of being creative. What we think consciously determines the patterns of subconscious thought and feeling that are going to determine our experience. And this is what we mean when we say that our consciousness determines our experience, which is something we say often because it's true. It's the reason that whatever happened to you and I last week happened. It's the reason that whatever will happen to us when we leave here today will happen. And it's the reason that whatever happens to us in the coming week will happen. Now, since all thought is creative, what is important is what we're doing with it, whether we're using it to create fulfillment or frustration. Now, it might seem strange, but one of the things we try to do here, I mean in churches, well, it's Back to Church Sunday, in centers like this, in our various New Thought teachings, one of the things we try to do here is to make you a bit uncomfortable in your mind. Make you a bit uncomfortable so that you're always reaching out, always becoming something new. And you thought you were coming here to get comfortable, didn't you? But think about an oyster. Beautiful natural pearls are created by oysters. The formation of a natural pearl begins when a foreign substance slips into the oyster between its mantle and shell, which irritates the mantle. The oyster's natural reaction is to cover up the irritant to protect itself. The mantle covers the irritant with layers of the same substance that is used to create the shell, and this eventually forms a pearl. From what starts out as an irritation comes something new and beautiful. And speaking of oysters, well, what do you call an oyster that wants to join a convent? Well, a cloister oyster. Now, this little bit of, waited years to tell that joke again. Haven't had a talk where I could tell it. But this little bit of uncomfortability in our minds causes us to respond to what Dr. Ernest Holmes calls the divine urge. Now, in his book, The Science of Mind, he writes, "We are surrounded by a spirit of living intelligence. an eternal givingness, love, goodness, and power that wishes to express itself through us. There is a divine urge within, ever pushing us forward to the goal. We are also surrounded by an immutable law of cause and effect, and because of our divine individuality and the necessity of experience in order to come to a realization of what and who we are subject to the causes which we have set in motion. So we can see that we're always creative, always creative, always creating something in every area of life. And as we know, there are 4 areas of life. There's health, wealth, love, and self-expression. And we're always creating something, always creating our experience in each one of those 4. Now, when we think of creativity, we're often thinking of that particular area of life called self-expression. And so I wanted to give that a little special attention. Well, what is self-expression? If you look in the dictionary, it says self-expression is the expression of one's own personality or assertion of one's individual traits. And I think this is a good definition because it captures the idea of uniqueness that characterizes self-expression. Now, I'm sure that at this very moment, hundreds of ministers at New Thought churches and centers are talking about the very same kind of ideas that I'm talking about now. But they're doing it in their own special ways. Some are telling funny stories, or at least what they think are funny stories. And some are enthralling their congregations with the presentation of clear ideas, supported by compelling illustrations, like here. I couldn't resist throwing that in. While others are boring the audience to tears of desperation. And this is self-expression. Each one of them is presenting their uniqueness, their own individual way of expressing ideas. Or notice that we're all wearing clothes. Now, if I were giving this talk in Times Square, I might not be able to say that. But we're not in Times Square, so I can say, notice we're all wearing clothes. Now, our society says we have to, and this is very often a good thing. But we're not all dressed the same. We're not all dressed the same. Each of us is wearing something that reflects our own personality, our own taste, our own individuality. And this, too, is self-expression. When artists create great works of art, when writers write, when composers compose, when musicians perform, they're each doing it in their own unique way. This is self-expression. So we could go on to ask, what is the source of self-expression? What is its essence? Where does it come from? And what does it have to do with us, specifically with our ability to creatively express ourselves? Now, Dr. Holmes wrote, man's self-expression is the experience of God. And as such, the more completely any man expresses himself, the more perfectly he expresses God. All we need to be sure of is that our self-expression is constructive and harms no one, and then we should go as far as we can. We must know that divine ideas constitute the only fundamental reality that there is. Well, this is the essence, the source of self-expression. Each of us is an individualization of spirit, is spirit expressing itself in a unique way. Now remember that God is a unity, a unit, one. That means that wherever God is, all of God is. Wherever God is, all of God is, because you can't break up a unit. And that's something, personally, I got from reading Thomas Troward, the way he describes spirit as a unit, it's a difficult concept to grasp, to understand. And once I read that, he said, well, spirit is a unit. So think of the qualities of a unit. What is a unit? Think of everything about that and then apply it to spirit. It helped me understand it a little better. One of those aha moments we talk about. So spirit, God, is a unit, and you can't break up a unit. There isn't a little piece of God in you, and a little piece of God in me, and an even littler piece of God in our neighbor down the block, who we don't like very much. Down the block. Do you have blocks here? Maybe I should have said our neighbor down the road, who we don't like very much. But spirit is a unity. Spirit is a unit. Wherever God is at all of God is. Now, what this means for us in very practical terms, in terms of self-expression, is that we can never run dry, never run out of ideas, never run out of ways to express ourselves, because really what we're expressing is something that's infinite, something that's unlimited. And so because it's always within us, expressing as us, how can we possibly run out of ideas? So the potential is always there. But will we use it? Now, to use it in any of these 4 areas of life, we have to attain a consciousness of our good in that area. Now, since everything we could possibly need or desire in all of these areas of life already exists within us by virtue of who and what we are, as the result of our divine nature, getting a consciousness of these things is a matter of recognition, appreciation, and acceptance. See, we don't have to go out and get something that's already within us. There's no reaching out for it. There's no going here or there for it, because it's already within us. But we do have to recognize and accept it. And our recognition and acceptance will create the consciousness that will draw it into our lives. So what should you do to be creative in ways that you want? Remember, we're being creative all the time, but now we want to do it in ways that we want. Well, first, get a recognition, a sense of the goodness of life, of what's out there, always available to you. And then expand your interests. And don't say you're too busy. Everyone always says they're too busy. Have you ever noticed that? Everyone is always, well, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. But did you ever notice, though, that people always find the time to do the things they really want to do, the things that they're really interested in doing? Maybe not the things they say they want to do, and maybe the things that they're supposed to be doing. Sorry, Louise Hay. I always say sorry, Louise Hay, whenever I say supposed to be doing, because she's made a big deal of, but we should never say we're supposed to do that or supposed to do the other thing. So I'm sorry. But the things that they're supposed to be doing, but they'll always find time to do what they really want to do. And now finally, get some new ideas, because these new ideas are the basis of creative living. Well, where do we get new ideas? We get them from all over, They're everywhere, but we're just not paying attention to them. For example, you might start with your bookshelf. Have you looked at it lately? What's on your bookshelf? There are probably books sitting on there that you haven't thought about in years. Books with all kinds of new ideas just sitting there patiently waiting for you. And they're a source of new ideas. Ideas that are just there waiting for you. And that's the point. That's the whole point. Every idea we need, every idea we want, is available to us, but we have to reach out and grasp it, or like the books, it'll just sit and wait and wait and wait. Ideas are available right where you are at every instant of time at any point in space. The creative process is always in action, making new things. You look, this is always going on in nature. Trees make new leaves every year. The tree might be 100 years old. It doesn't matter, it still makes new leaves every year. So think about that the next time you want to use the excuse that I'm too old to do this or I'm too old to do that. Think about the tree that's 100 years old and yet it continues to make new leaves every year. It's not sitting around saying, I'm too old. It probably isn't even aware that it's too old. So do what you can do to get a new thought going in your mind. And then be like the oyster. Allow that wonderful little irritation in your mind to lead to the creation of something new and beautiful as you use this ongoing creative process. And so ends the lesson.